Morning to you.
Basking in the glow of one of my finer sports weekends as a fan.
Oh, God. Here we go.
Well, it's not my fault you guys lost to Marquette.
We lose to our biggest rivalry, and you
I
guys
know,
beat number
right?
one team in the country.
Man, talk about and listen, not only did I get to watch the game, I got to watch it uninterrupted as Hayden had a PR nap of like over 3.5 hours.
Yeah.
It was insane, and that was coming on the heels of my much maligned, always underachieving, mediocre for decades Miami Dolphins pulling off a probably once in a lifetime beating of the New England Patriots on a last second like triple lateral. So yeah, all in all, it was it was great, but it was really awesome watching Tennessee beat Gonzaga because and I think we see this with athletes and stuff too. Like you see somebody and you're like, you're not like normally you would have caved or bonked or come up short, and then you kind of watch them like totally evolve into something that doesn't even look that doesn't even like closely resemble the way they used to look.
Mm-hmm.
And that was what I was watching with Tennessee. I mean, I could definitely see it last year, obviously, because under Rick Barnes we've gotten a lot better. But we would have always lost that game, always. If it was close, we got a rebound. We were up three, and like one of our own guys fell on two other guys and got called for a travel, and Gonzaga got the ball back. And I was like, this is like so typical Tennessee.
Mm-hmm.
But it ended up it was really good to watch, and it was fun to see some of the guys that stuck around get a win like that. And but yeah, it was a good sport as a fan weekend. It was a great weekend and a good day for our athletes that were racing all over East Coast at challenged at Daytona Saturday and Sunday, and then all the way on the West Coast as well, triathlon wise at Indian Wells 70.3. Everybody had a great weekend, and so yeah, it was a good weekend, especially given the fact that I was stuck inside all week, and as weather here was not as treacherous as it seemed to be on the rest of the East Coast and New England with a bunch of snow, but it was just rainy and cold and gross, and so we were inside most of the weekend.
Yeah, man. They're learning how to finish with a little bit, you know.
Yeah, with our best player fouling out with 2.5 minutes to go.
Yeah.
But
That's a mentality, man. There's just no doubt about it.
It's I thought it was really cool. And of course, there's like a million analogies I could take from that game to put into triathlon related conversation. Since if you didn't know, this isn't Sports Talk Radio FM Nashville. This is actually the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast. But after the game, Rick Barnes was asked about Admiral Schofield's 3 that basically put us up for the win. And he said the first thing I thought about when he made that shot was all the hard work he's put in.
Mm.
Instead of, oh, what a great game or we're going to win, it was like, I just thought it was very cool and very insightful as to how he coaches, which I think is pretty cool. But then just like how you watch people, they always have that like overnight success, titles thrown onto people, and but when you make a big shot like that, it's like you think about all the, probably all the time he spent in the gym just trying to get better while nobody was watching, and then finally see it come true on a big national stage. I think he said after he said that, he was like, I felt, or in the locker room, he said, all I could think about when you made that shot was how much hard work you've put in, and it just shows that hard work pays off. And I just thought that was it's such a great analogy for so many things, but triathlon as well, is that, you just work hard, you work hard, you work hard and work hard. And then one day you kind of open your eyes and you finish a race, and all of a sudden you're like, holy hell, you train thinking and believing and hoping you can do these things, but you never really truly, I think sometimes, know you can until you either do it or you just totally surpass it. And I think that's just like such a mental shift that I think athletes, regardless of the sport, it's so great to go through, but they have to go through it in order to, I think, kind of change the way they've always thought about it. Because we always label ourselves, like even in professional sports, I'm just a role player, or I'm just like quarterbacks, I'm just a game manager. But I think, and you label those things, and we've used a quote before. I think it's like, you are what you repeatedly do, but you also become what you consistently label yourself as. If you're, I firmly believe that, and I used this with an athlete last week. I said, you have so much more confidence in your fragility than your ability to be resilient. And I think that we just take those labels that we put on ourselves and you just become them. And so I think, like, when you have moments like those as an athlete, regardless of if you're doing a sport like triathlon or you're running or cycling or swimming, or you're at the highest ranks in the professional, like, it's like that, I think I belong. Like, I'm here. Like, I actually think I belong. But as, like, the way you look at yourself, I think it changes the shift in your mindset of kind of redefining yourself as an athlete, which I think always also in turn trickles down into how you define yourself, not as a person, but I think the characteristics that you make up, and then what you are capable of as an individual.
Hmm. And how do you do these things in pretty much solitary? You practice. That's what I mean. He's probably shooting, a couple hundred extra jumpers after practice or whatever the case is. When everybody's gone or getting there early and doing stuff, and then it he feels like he's a better shooter in practice in after everybody's gone, and then he goes in a couple games and he doesn't hit that shot, but he keeps going back to the gym and keeps shooting, and then suddenly, 6 months later or whatever, he hits the game winner against the number one team in the country, and then it's like, wow, okay,
Hmm.
you got to keep going back to the well because there's all that practice, and then there's all that game practice, and the analogy is all those runs, all those late night runs or early morning runs, and then there's race runs that there's different um, energy and emotion and pressure and anxiety involved with that, and you got to kind of practice that, and then it takes a while, to keep going and bringing that all together.
Yeah, and it goes back to that quote that I think it was Shalane Flanagan, and if it wasn't, I'm sure I'll be corrected. But after, I think, her win, she said, even on the most ordinary days, I know that I'm preparing for something extraordinary.
Hmm.
And that's so much, like, just from knowing Admiral Schofield's story, like, it'll never be like chronicled probably, but as a freshman, he had like the worst ball handling skills ever, and was on his it was this is now like his third coach, but he was just didn't even look like the same player. But I think what drives these players that do get better, not like you see like one big blip, but to see players get better year after year after year after year after year, they're I don't think what drives them is like, I want to be a superstar. I want to get a Nike contract. I think, like, sure, that might be like part of a external motivation, like when the intrinsic motivation like runs dry. But I think it's like, I just want to get better. And it was he, they were interviewing him after the game. They're like, you decided to come back for your senior year when he actually probably would have got maybe like a late second round draft pick last year. And he said, I came back because I wanted to be Rick Barnes' favorite player ever that he coached, which I thought that's just like totally like counterintuitive to the way I think most athletes think these days. But I think it also shows that he wanted something bigger than what that was just for himself. And I think that, like, those kind of motivations, and because I think there's a very distinct relationship and subsequent kind of performance that you can see with the athletes and how they have their motivation distributed. Like, listen, everybody has both intrinsic and external motivation. That's just, we all do. Whether we like to admit it or not, we all do. But I think it's how the scale is balanced. Like, is 95% of your motivation extrinsic or external? Like, you have to have it feeded off somebody else, or somehow, I got to beat this person, or my arch nemesis, or I've got to do this, or I've got to beat this Strava segment, and only 5% of it is like motivation from you internally. And I think if you flop those, I think there's a much healthier balance in having a more, like, a higher intrinsic motivation with some external. And I think you rely on that external when your intrinsic motivation, your internal motivation is just kind of lacking or fading. Kind of use it as like an espresso shot, like a motivation, or like a needle or something. It's like I don't this isn't going to be long term, but if I just need it for today, that's okay.
Yeah.
Or this workout versus I need this in order to do this race in 4 months.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a good path for success.
It keeps burning you out. It'll eventually burn you out, I think. I mean, it's the adrenaline kind of, shot in the arm kind of, let's push it over the top kind of thing. And, in relation to the last podcast, reset your body. I think that eventually you're going to have to do that, because if you can't come from the inside, if this isn't, if you don't have the baseline of internal juice and energy to want and be able to do these kind of things, if that's just not the foundation, eventually you're going to tip over the wrong side and you're going to find yourself digging out of a hole, I think. I mean, you can really force yourself to do some incredible things based on external motivation, and it does work sometimes. And I think that's definitely like you said, it's like that shot, the espresso shot in one way, but you have to be able to like almost convert that into that external type motivation into inner motivation, if that makes any sense. It's sort of like you have to be able to flip your own switch inside and come from a more pure, connected sort of point in your body, I think, in your mind more so. It's like, what is this? It's like you got to get jacked up about doing something that will make you a better, stronger person.
In how exactly? I mean, and how are you going to know that unless it's about you
Mm-hmm.
and where you're going? I think it's like such a great point. But what gets lost and I think sometimes like people, and I honestly, like, I even think that like that we went back to this a couple, I think, weeks ago when we talked about people like really lacking in motivation. They're like, you know what? I don't have any motivation. You know what I'm gonna do? I'm gonna buy a training plan where I'm training 20 hours a week, and I'm gonna sign up for 3 Ironman this year. I'm gonna get out of this rut, and I'd be interested to see how that's working out. Because it's like I think extrinsic and external motivation is so much just like impulse purchasing and filling voids. And it's like, why do I even really need that? Or why do I even care about X, whatever it is, whatever your X, like I got to beat so-and-so. Oh, because listen, there are plenty of athletes like, oh, so-and-so's doing that race. I'm doing it because I'm going to see if I can beat them. I want to beat them. And it's like, first of all, this is a hobby, and I get it that we're competitive, but like, what are you really going to get out of that? Probably nothing, because the other person probably has no idea that you even exist on the face of the planet. And you're going to go race them and like feel like the greatest person in the world, and the other person's be like, oh, I don't even know who you are. What's the big deal? But I think it's just where you get all this motivation from, in turn, is just reciprocal about what it does either to you or for you. And obviously, I think in my experience with the athletes that I've had the pleasure of working with, it's like the internal motivation in like this, it's like a switch that goes in from like, okay, I'm like, I've been totally underselling myself and my ability for years. I had no idea I was capable of this. And it's probably a lot of it also probably came from an external belief of association, where you see, Mike Tarrolly down the street and you're like, oh, he's way too fast for me because he's faster currently. And you have no idea that 5 years ago he could barely do a 5K. You know what I mean? And so
Mm-hmm.
like you lose these sights of these like where everybody sees everybody on like this one. It's all linear. It's how we see people usually. It's like, oh, well, like, oh, you used to be this. Oh, well, maybe I can do that. It's like this. It's like the perfect analogy when people go and spectate an Ironman. Like the pros don't, or like the first like 20% of the field don't motivate anyone, but like the last like 30% of the finishers motivate probably 80% of the people who take up the sport. because they're like, oh, if if they can do it, I can do it. And you like see yourself differently through someone else because you kind of get to see like a different part of it when again like we all like, oh, you're a much you've it's like that you've always been an athlete thing, or you have an advantage because I'm like, dude, like let me tell you a little bit about where you used to be or
Hmm.
what I used to be doing, and like your story is great about that. It's like, oh well, like no, and I've been there, and you can all get there, but the first step isn't so much doing it, it's believing that there's something else inside of you that can achieve this instead of continuously labeling ourselves in a fashion that's either negative or is it's just negative self-talk or whatever those things are. You continuously believe that, and like the most simplest way that you and I do this with the athletes that we work with is stripping a person of their watch, because a watch is another way to label somebody or label yourself, because you see a heart rate or you see a pace when you do these races and you're like, I can't do this, even though you're like talking out loud like I can't do this. You're like, wait a minute, I should be out of breath but I'm not, so maybe I can, so maybe I should keep going. But it's just there's so much that goes into where we end up in the conversation that we have in order to get there.
Hmm. Let me just give a recent internal motivational thing that clicked with me. About 3 weeks ago, I was, kind of walking around in that 2 or month and a half, 2 month after Ironman, kind of like malaise, funky, kind of feel good some days, don't feel good some days. And I
Hmm.
woke up and, I was reaching over to like get Maddie's food bowl, and my hips and hammies were just so tight, and I thought I'd been doing some good stuff for it. I'm like, man, this has got to go, man. So that's when I started doing this yoga thing, right? But even that is sort of in my head a little bit of a, well, I just need to start getting around people and do some classes and do, so it was kind of externally motivated at first, and then after a week or so it felt good at first, and then it started not feeling so good, and I was like, you know what, I'm going to commit to this. So I gotta, go through that pain, that tough transition thing that we talked about last podcast, and see if I can get through it. And so about a week in or a week later, so I'm 2 weeks in now, and I'm still doing it. I'm pretty consistent, like almost every day, and even at home a little bit. And I went to a class this Saturday, and I showed up at 11 downtown Y, and nobody was there. A big, huge old room open, and I walk in and nobody's there. I went and looked at the schedule, and I somehow read the thing wrong online about what time it was. So my first instinct was to just, get the heck out of there. Well, I missed class. Well, I went back in there and I did like the longest session I ever had in that open room by myself, and
Hmm.
it was all because I'm starting to feel better, like genuinely, and I feel stronger in those moves, and it just becomes more enjoyable when you can execute things like that. That's why, you know, I'm really such a proponent right now of this slow burn. We've talked about slow burn a lot, but it's almost like you got to get through a month or two of anything, and you talk about it. Just stick with something for 2 months, and just then come back and tell me if it's working or not, because you can't tell.
Hmm.
And I'm
Yep.
starting to see signs, and you know what else clicked with me? So I'm feeling stronger. I think I told you about the standing on one leg, my left leg starting to get stronger, and I feel like I can balance on it and things like that. And I start
Yep.
thinking about this. I mean, hypothetically, if your legs are twice as strong, all things remaining equal, that should mean your body should feel twice as light, right? Or is that kind of a goofy paradigm? But I mean, you know what I'm
Twice
saying
as
there?
light. It's it's you just feel more efficient.
Right. So like if you're
Yeah,
weak,
it's like you having the same it's like you having the same body weight, but you're going up a hill using using more power. You're going to go up faster because your power's gone up, your weight stayed the same, so it should feel lighter.
Mhm.
Okay, it's the same kind of thing.
Right, yeah. So, I mean, but in general, if you're just sluggish in life and you're having a hard time getting off the couch and you're getting a little overweight, that's really ultimately what's going on. Is that you're not strong enough to have energy. You know
Mm.
what I mean? So I've been thinking about things like that, and then so this week has been, you know what, I'm gonna I kind of was on this running thing for a few weeks ago, and I stopped because I was just wasn't flying for me, and then I went back into my slow running this week while I was, combining it with yoga, and I think I've run 5 out of 6 days in pretty, 40 to 50 minutes, and it just feels more solid, and those kind of little clues really get me optimistic. Now, if you're not into yoga or whatever, I think this is really like, just body lunges and doing these things that kind of can, balance out and make your body stronger and make things easier.
Hmm.
Because that's really what it comes down to is if we're stronger, things in life become easier. And if you're
They should become easier, hopefully.
yeah, I mean, but it's just a pure physics thing too in a lot of ways. Like if your legs are overworked and tight and you got a lot of anxiety or you're depressed or whatever, you're feeling heavy, you know. Um, and I think that's just. I guess my point about this whole thing is that when I went to do yoga and there wasn't a class there, I really felt motivated to keep going and did the whole thing on my own. It was probably the better class that I've ever had because I did it for myself, and it wasn't prescribed to some yoga instructor's goofy fast flow aerobic routine. I just kind of took my time and did it my way, and it felt way better. That's kind of like going on Zwift and having to keep up with the Joneses. It's not really for you.
It is like it's being able to find that groove, and then again, it's like the one like our topics a lot in this last few weeks. It's just like having like the confidence to just stick with it. Just stick with it. And even if it, like you said, like you did the 100, you were trying to run thing, and if it doesn't click, it doesn't click. But it doesn't mean they're not all going to click. And so you can't, like, again, like you could have easily been like, you know what, I just can't, this is just me again trying something different, and I'm not going to be able to stick with it, so I'm just not going to do anything until I feel like I can totally buy in. It's like there's probably a million people around the world right now. They're like, I got to get in shape before I go to the gym.
Mm-hmm.
Like I can't show up at the gym and be out of shape.
Yep.
Like that, like my cousin Kelly, like that was one of those things. She's like, I know I need to go to the gym, but I got to get in shape first before I go.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's not how it works. But so many people like that are in triathlon are right now saying, I can't get on training plan now. I can't do anything. I can't train. I need to get ready and I'll be ready.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of just simply like, because the way that we think is we have to do all of these extraordinary things out of the gate to reassure us that we are capable. Like we make these like overreaching, like, you know what? I'm kind of struggling. I'm gonna do a half marathon in 2 weeks. And there's someone right now that's like, oh shit, that's me. Yeah, it's right, it is you. But it's like, why? Like, it's like, it's just ordinary is so, it's just so underrated, and it's kind of like it's the exact thing I was talking about when I said varieties for the week. It's like there's so much things that are like, there's doing ordinary things when they might seem ordinary. 90% of the sessions that the top level athletes do in the world are ordinary. They're more ordinary than most age groupers. They're just doing the work, and like, because I think that there's this huge misconception that you have to do epic shit every day, and you have to beat yesterday, and you have to do something incredible and grand to be of note, or to do something of note, or to prove to yourself that you're making progress. But that's all garbage. It's all garbage. That's just society and the way that we've done that. You have to Instagram filter every day is your greatest day ever, and every day has to beat the next day, because if it doesn't, then you're not keeping up. Real, true dedication and motivation and commitment and progress comes from doing all the ordinary things right that nobody wants to do because to them it's just not fancy enough. And you wonder why the things don't ever get done when they want to do the thing that's, they jump from thing to thing. Like the the everybody, it's like the cake thing we always talk about. Like everybody wants to show off the icing, nobody wants to be about the cake, even though the cake makes up 90% of it and you have 10% is the icing. Everybody wants the icing because it's what tastes good, so everybody sees, and it's the first thing people look at. But if you don't have the cake, all it's going to be is a slab.
Mm.
So like it takes so much more. It's infinite. There's so much more dedication to do all the ordinary things that aren't these fantastic, you know, Strava, Instagram, whatever, like feed things that we just like constantly shove our face in when we scroll through social media, and what we think other people need to see because we think other people care what we see, and what we're doing is going to impact them. But in the reality is, it's like it doesn't. Like the being dedicated and committing to something, and like really truly like wanting to get better and wanting to achieve X, so much of it is routine based with not too much variety, and it's just consistent, and it takes so much buy-in to just stop questioning things, stop bouncing around on different ideologies, different philosophies, different training methods, and just go, and then see what happens in 4 months versus what happens in 4 days.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you right now that even if you stick with it for 4 months and it didn't come out exactly how you wanted to, like, it's probably going to turn out great, but for some reason it came out okay, or maybe not as good as you wanted to, I guarantee you're going to learn more about yourself that's applicable to the next phase of your life by just committing to doing something for 4 months, and what you learned about yourself in that process versus jumping back and forth between different things every 4 days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it comes back to like, okay, you talked about it before, but this it's kind of that going to the gym before you want to be in shape when you go to the gym, and it's like you have an early season race. It really doesn't matter. It's just something you want to do or whatever, and you gate and just thrash that thing when actually your reality is your A race is a late season half or an Ironman or something like that, and how hard it is to think about doing something today for that. And like when I'm running, my floor right now is 10-minute pace, and that was so hard for me to run 10 plus minutes for the longest time. And now I'm looking at my watch, and it's my kind of what do you call it, governor. And if I see my watch dip below a 10-minute pace, I get pissed now. So I'm like in a good spot for that. So I've made it competitive. You know what I mean? Like my competition now is to see how slow I can go. Like if my floor is 10 minutes, my overall run, like for me, I start thinking about an overall average of say a 5 mile run or whatever, or a 50-minute run. And I want that to be about a 10:20, because that means that I'm sticking really pretty solid and consistently close to 10, and then it's an overall average, so when I start I'm going a little slower. So if I get there around 10:20, that's almost perfect. And usually it's not quite that good. I haven't got that, because normally if you get up around 10 you're going to dip below it, and then you got to kind of I usually stop and walk for a little bit. So that's sort of the whole dynamic of that. But I just keep thinking about Wisconsin when I'm out there running. I'm like, all right, how is this going to be paying me off on that Ironman run? I mean, I haven't always been able to think like that, but I'm intermittently done that, and now I'm really just putting my head right there all the time. It's like, okay, how is this going to pay me off then? I don't care about anything until that point, and just slowly building it. It's like I'm painting trim right now, and eventually I'll fill that whole wall in. But I'm taking my time, and I'm making meticulous efforts to make that perfect before I move on.
It's so true. But the kind of like I said a few weeks ago, or maybe last week it was, where the greatest strength lies in understanding and acknowledging your weaknesses. Like this is the exact same thing. except you can show so much strength and power through restraint. Like just it's again restraint, aka just sticking to the course and doing you, is so underrated. It's not even funny because what most people see, or the way that again society has kind of driven us towards this, and we've driven society this way is probably a better way to put it. We are society, is we've driven us in a direction to where you don't do you. You do what we think everybody needs to see in order to feel like we're keeping up, or we have to do something extravagant for whatever reason. Like it's the same kind of like the best race you might do is the one you don't even sign up for, or you don't go race. Like those are oftentimes some of the best races, because you're showing restraint and the power to do that, and the courage and the confidence and you have to have in yourself to stay the course and to show restraint it's gonna pay off huge dividends down the road. Because the person who just always has to race, Joe Triathlon, or the person who always has to just can't not do it, when you say a phrase or you keep putting a phrase in, it's like I could not do it. It just shows a total lack of self-awareness and a total lack of confidence, honestly. Confidence and restraint, like just showing restraint. And like, just take it straight to the race course. You see it all the time with athletes who just fail miserably to show restraint on the bike and just absolutely blow up. A lot of those athletes are probably actually in overall better shape than athletes that end up coming in front of them. They just have zero. There I go, overbiking again. Overbiking again. How does it feel to just be always underachieving and show no restraint?
I don't know.
It's just like it happens all the time. And again, it's like I do not believe I'm far from one of the best coaches out there, but I think one of the things I really try to drive home is show restraint, show restraint, show restraint. So when you're ready to release, you can, because there is such a difference in showing restraint and being restrained. And on the bike, you should show restraint so you don't have to feel restrained when you run. But most athletes feel restrained when they run because they showed no restraint on the bike, and they want to run faster and they want to push harder, but guess what? They can't. Because you blew your load.
Well, I've noticed over the years though that there's really one really good advantage of blowing yourself out on the bike. You want to know what that is? You make you can make a really good friend walk in the marathon.
It's true.
You end up you could be a good motivational partner out there while you walk that marathon. You can just talk about, man, all kinds of stuff. A lot of time.
Well, you have to, because you don't want to sit there. You don't want to sit there in your own misery and failure.
You can learn a lot about excuses too in those walks. Yeah, my nutrition.
It is. It's just
I got this tweak. My ankle's been tweaked for a couple months, and
it's just. And again, like this time of year, restraint is also not trying to jump back on your bike and go for a run when you're sick.
Yeah.
Like, no, honestly, nobody cares if you're going to go out and push through a 30-minute run in December but with a cold. Hashtag still sick. Hashtag got the flu. Hashtag nose is snotty. Guess what? Hashtag nobody cares. The best thing you can do is take like 3 to 4 days off and get totally healthy. Like, do you just want to keep going at 80%, or do you want to get 100% so you can actually turn yourself into a different version the next time you are 100%? Or do you want to just keep lumping along? Again, it all comes back to restraint. Like, what do you, and this is one of the most underrated aspects of when you do end up having a coach, or if you do have a coach, is them to restrain you. I mean, I think most coaches would tell people this. 95% of their job is restraint.
It's funny you
Is
mention that because I've been
just
doing that in the club a lot already.
it's just like preventing people from doing stupid things or in the future or doing a stupid thing today or tomorrow. That is 95% of coaching. Just don't be dumb and don't do stupid things and don't get in your own way. Uh, or that's probably not like every single day I'm an athlete. Is this a good idea or a bad idea? And I'm like, if you're asking it, you probably already know the answer. It's
Mm.
probably a bad. It's probably a bad idea. But it is. It's a helping some like helping navigate through all of our because listen, I'm not trying to tell you that it's easy. To control your thoughts and emotions and your in ego and all these motivational fly. All these things are just they're so emotions and are so hard to manage. Um, but when you have somebody to kind of help you work through it, as a relationship because it's going to affect you both, then you know it's a good conversation to have.
Hmm. It is hard, man. It's hard to believe that little things are making a difference. I mean, it's unless you have some. Yeah, I think that's maybe the big deal about when I've been like I said in the club, and now we've got a ton of new athletes in our club membership program. Which, if you haven't checked it out yet, it's at our website crushingiron.com in the club tab, and it's essentially it's $2.99 for the year. You get access to all our training plans. You get a 12-week custom plan for your A race. You get we have a closed Facebook group we're going to be starting for the club members, where Robbie and I will be in there doing Q&As and Facebook Live and stuff like that. I give you a phone consultation about where you're at and where you're going and where you want to go, and then I'll be giving you feedback on workouts and things like that. So I'm kind of, if you're not up for a full-time coach, it's kind of a sort of a coaching situation, but not with the all-on business. But yeah, I've been learning that a lot. It's like I think it is. I mean, that's the first because I'm looking at it from the big picture already. I'm looking at what's going on, and a lot of people are, I'm telling them if you're not feeling it or you're not up for it or you don't feel good or whatever the case is, I am kind of on that whole back phase, and I'm really pointing out. It's like, look, yeah, that's great, nice job and everything. Just keep in mind you've got this ahead of you. So it's little things that don't seem like big deals, but like when I see somebody just, it's weird. I've been like, if somebody even does a workout, I'm just like, nice job. What I didn't have it today, but it's kind of like the little things that make me happy as a coach, and then I try to relay that to them. It's like, hey, you got out there. I know you had a 40-minute run, but you only ran 25 minutes. That's a win. And
Hmm.
and they probably didn't feel like it was a win. So I think that's the value of having somebody like you're saying working together with you. It's a subtle little thing, but it makes a huge difference.
Well, I think it's listen, like performances are important. Getting better and faster is important. I mean, I get that. That's why I think a lot of people hire a coach, obviously, is because they want to get better or faster. They want you to take the burden off them, um, in order so they can, not think about it. And so obviously they want to see themselves get better or improve. But I think without question, and you and I have talked about this some since you've been taking on the club athletes, is that the greatest obstacle in the most amount of effort most coaches I think put in as an initial investment or depending on the athlete long term because it is everybody's different, personalities are different, people's experiences are different, so it might take longer than some or than others, but the greatest thing you have to work with an athlete is it's kind of flip-flopping how they see and how they define ordinary and extraordinary is they feel ordinary. A lot of athletes feel ordinary when they come to you and they want to become extraordinary. Even if the version of extraordinary for them is way over what they could ever achieve, but most often, 95% of the time, in my experience, their level of extraordinary is way too low because they feel and consider themselves just ordinary. But what you have to convince them is that you just need to do the ordinary, the sessions, the consistency, staying healthy, taking care of your body, being smart, all these things. Keep a good perspective. Like do all the ordinary things and nobody sees it. It's not what looks like extraordinary sessions, epic sessions. It's convincing them and kind of helping them shift that mindset. But for a coach, it's like, listen, like sometimes the athlete's like, what do you think I need to work on this next year? I mean, a lot of times it's your mind, like how you see yourself, the negative self-talk. Those are the things that get in your way, and that's where I think a lot of coaches do. You have to get into an athlete's mind and figure out what makes them work or not, or a lot of time not work. Like I had an athlete this morning who ran his fastest 5K ever and said, "Well, this is my fastest 5K pace ever," and that's kind of sad. And I was like, "Well, okay, first of all, you just ran your fastest 5K ever, and you think that's sad." And I said, "My biggest goal for you for next year is to stop the negative self-talk." Um, but it's also in that same breath, a lot of athletes is helping them reshape the way that they've thought for years and years and years and years, which was, I quote unquote, I can only do this, or I never thought I could do this, because we so oftentimes think ourselves into a wrong. We think ourselves into becoming lost, or we think ourselves into becoming what we sit here as we are, instead of having aspirations and goals. And aspirations and goals are great. They're great, but they're only great when they're followed by the reciprocated action that mirrors them. Not, I have to do something great or I have to do something extraordinary in order to feel less ordinary or increase my self-worth or my value. And that is like the constant give and take with athletes. And it's why there is no like off season for coaching. Is you're always coaching, always working. Athletes, even personalities change over the course of time, and they mold in different things with their experiences, and they tend to look at different things. Sometimes it's pushing their personality, their mindset forward into a different place, and sometimes it's saying, whoa, remember how we got here. Remember how we got here. Instead of wanting to, we increased this year by, whatever, some arbitrary 10% across the board. All right, I want 20% next year.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, dude, slow down for a minute. Like, let's just like we always expect. Athletes are this is what they're great. They're known for. It's like they match. We live in a match world. Like it's I gained I increased my functional threshold by 10% this last one. Next one, at least 10, if not 20.
Mm-hmm.
You're like, dude, that's not how it works. And you can't expect that, but B, it's like there are so many other, nuts and bolts to take into account of what the inner workings that go on into everything in life, than to just pull arbitrary numbers out the window based on, how you see yourself.
Uh-huh. I think you made a really good point. I mean, we talk so much about staying within yourself and patience and all these kinds of things, but I mean, let it be known that you and I both personally have aspirations to get fast. You know what I mean? Like, I just, in some ways, I just think we're trying to reprogram thoughts in our own brain that we've had, and a lot of people have gotten about, like I always talk about the Russian gymnast coach, how they're hard driving and it's constantly on their mind and they just work. And we're just trying to bring back a little bit of that for everybody and for ourselves, because I mean, make no doubts. I mean, me, I've always had this idea that I want to go to Kona, right? And it's just taken me, like, this stuff we talk about is the same struggles that I've had my whole time. And it's taken me, like 4 or 5 years in the sport to kind of figure out that my approach of external motivation, of willing my way to get there through competing hard with others and maybe going out of my comfort zone all the time, is not the real solution. It's got to be built slowly with a good foundation, and I'm just starting to learn that. But I just want to be clear that even when I'm talking to people that call, we have these great conversations on the phone about where they want to go. I like to hear that they want to, do a sub 13 Ironman, or I want to hear what they have in their mind, because that's important to me. It's I think that everyone wants to, it's natural to have goals like that, and I do think they're all possible. It's just a matter of stepping back and really doing it the right way, because ultimately, we may have these goals, but the real bottom line, I think, for everybody is they just want to feel good, I think they want to feel healthy. I want to feel strong and just, feel better about themselves and life in general. So it's a balancing act with that kind of stuff, I think, because this is a sport where I've seen it so many times that people can get completely out of whack, hang it all up, go right back to what they were doing. And compared, it's like you talked about your treatment the other time, and if you don't stick with it, I mean, that's just all. It's basically a relapse, and if you don't do it the right way, you're going to end up probably right back where you started.
You can't take any shortcuts.
Right.
And expect to, when things get uncomfortable or I'm going to get there quicker, I'm like, there is no my therapist that was at the ranch, and the guy I still see now, he's got like almost 20 years. And so he sees people in so many different stages of life, and he's like, I just tell him, man, I'm like, it's all right there. It's all written down. It's all right there. You just got to do it. But everybody wants to stop and skip steps and make their own addendum, to like, oh, well, this one doesn't apply for me because I'm special, and I don't really fit in that category because I'm this. I'm like, dude, no, you're not. Just like the rest of us, like, just do it. It's like the easiest thing in the world. It's like you just follow it, and then you do it, and then you have to apply it, which is hard. But again, it all comes back to restraint. And what you were talking about is like about, I want to go to Kona. The best analogy, and we do that as a lot, because I think it's a great way for people to learn, and it's the easiest way for us to explain things, is that you have two kinds of people. You got people who max out their credit card, and then you have people who save to pay for something down the road. It's all great to want to go to Kona, and people's reasons and motivations and their why they're behind wanting to go, they're all different. But then work your way backwards. What does that need to look like in order for you to get there? So, like the Kona or crossing the line or qualifying, that's the end result. Go reverse it. Go all the way back to what's it gonna take for me to make this a reality? How's it gonna make it a reality? You're gonna have to stay healthy. You're gonna have to put in this amount of training. You're gonna have to do this. You're gonna have this. You have to get this fast. And like, oh, whoa, okay. Well, wait a minute. I'm not up for that. But I sure do want to go. And then you got, like back to the car analogy. It's like, I'm gonna buy that new car. Man, I can't afford it. But I want it. So I'm going to take out a gigantic loan or beg I can't afford. I'm going to put it in, and then it's going to get repossessed in like 4 months. And then you have the other athlete who's like, yeah, Kona would be great. I really want to go, but I know it's like chicken for the egg. Like I know what I really need to do first, and that's do the best I can with every day that I have available to me. And if I can do those things and it works out, it works out. But in order for me to get to there, in order for me to get to Z, I've got to start at A and work my way up. And if I can do all those things, who knows what'll happen? Who knows what I'll qualify for? Who knows what I'll achieve? So you go back to the car and you're like, man, we really want to go on this trip. It's probably going to take like 3 years to save for. Do we really want to do that, or do we really have the money? And you look at finances and you look at your budget and you're like, oh, we're going to have to cut out this and you're going to have to cut out that and you're going to cut that. Okay, maybe not. Maybe it's not smart. Maybe it's not, my wife uses this terminology, maybe it's just not the right season of life for me to do X, Y, and Z. and
That's good.
and that's so much with training and too. It's like that's just not like, but it doesn't mean you can't be your best within it. And the same thing goes with training and with making goals and stuff. It's just like understand what's reality and what's showing restraint, which is being responsible and being, because it's because what's going to happen is you go out and you make this purchase on this brand new truck that you can't afford, and it gets uh repoed after 6 months or puts you in so much like financial hardship. Well, guess what happens? 3 or 4 years and 3 or 4 years from now, guess what? You might be able to afford it, but you're going to get turned down because of what happened before. So understand what season of life you're in versus the other person who didn't buy this truck or that didn't want to save for this extravagant, you know, vacation. They saved for it or they didn't do it, and 3 or 4 years down the road, something happens and they look at each other and they're like, man, aren't we glad we didn't spend money on this? Because now we're not in a bad spot. Like a medical bill or whatever, job loss, whatever. It's just about showing restraint and being smart and just doing all the stuff that, like, yeah, a lot of times you don't want to do. The 30-minute easy runs, the 1 hour, hour and a half spins that are all zone 1, zone 2. The 2K swims, the foundational work or the foam rolling. It's all the stuff that you don't want to do because it doesn't give you enough of a buzz or an endorphin rush or it's not postable. But guess what? It makes up like 80%, if not more, of your training. So, as much as we would like to pretend like the 10% is what gets us to where we want to go because it's what we get the most out of sometimes for whatever reason, it's not. It's the 80 to 90. You got to make the sword before you sharpen it. You can't do it vice versa and expect to have something that lasts for a while.
Yeah, sort of like reflect on that a little bit. History is usually kind if you can look back at it and from a couple of years from now, I'll say, wow, man, I did a lot. I did a lot of good stuff. But in the moment, it doesn't seem so all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's amazing what you've done, and you're doing amazing things, but you can't recognize it now. You're going to be looking back at it and go, wow, man, I worked hard. I was consistent. I did amazing things. I was listening to a thing the other night. It was an interview with President Clinton and Bush, the son, and of
Mm-hmm.
course, his dad just died and everything. But I think this was before they died. But they were both talking about the biggest moments in their political life, and it was when they both got hammered in a race, not drunk, but when they just got slammed in a early, political race. I thought they were some hot shots coming out of the gate, and they were just going to go for it and
Yeah, just gonna cruise along.
just going to cruise along. And like they both said that they learned about 80% of everything they needed to know about politics in that one thing. But that the key there, I think, is that they obviously reflected on what they went through. They learned from it, and moved up. They moved on and kind of used those lessons. And that's one thing I've been terrible at. I'm not terrible, but I'm not the best at, It's like, not, I mean, it's just like you said, man, it's really kind of simple. It's just a matter of having the confidence and the patience to trust the process. And so many of us struggle with that.
It's just because we all think we're special.
Yeah, I know.
No, no. Listen, man. Like I know that works for most people, but listen to me. I'm too time crunched. I got to do all these special things, and I'm like, dude, whatever, man. Like, you don't know what works for you because you've tried 19 different things in the last 14 days.
Yeah.
Trying to chase something special, or because you're special, or because your schedule's different. It's like, yeah, it might you might be, your schedule might need more adjustments, or you might need this or need that, or a little bit of this or a little bit less, but usually it's like you might need 5% less and 5% more, not 50 or 500% different. Because what we end up doing, we also, as much as we like to think that we're special, we use that our being special as an excuse. Well, I mean, like, listen, like, I can't do this, or I've had to do that, or I only did this based on this. I'm like, dude, like, just do the rest, like what the rest of us are supposed to do, and just like do your shit.
Yeah.
It's like you're just not. Sorry, you're not special. None of us are really that special. We're
Yeah.
all different, but it's like from a training aspect, it's like I've had I think 2 or 3 conversations just in the last couple months when an athlete's inquired about coaching. They're like, yeah, I just don't respond well to this, and I have to have this as my training. I'm like, well, how do you like? Okay, I'm definitely one to listen. Well, and then it's about what they it's
Well,
yeah, don't ask me. You're not supposed to ask me why. You're not supposed to ask me why. God forbid. But I'm like, okay, well that's not really gonna work because you're telling me you're not asking to be coached or to get better. You're just asking me to basically oblige to every whim of everything you want to do, and that's just not gonna work out. But it's just we all, it's like think about it or challenge yourself into like thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking and thinking like, oh well, maybe I was wrong, or maybe I don't know, maybe I don't know things.
I was thinking, because I'm that guy, like I'm sort of like that. I get that. And I think, where I get in trouble is when I decide, okay, oh man, I just had a bad few days and I'm just really down on myself and I got to get my act together. It's sort of that we tend to let's change everything tomorrow. Let's just change it up. And I just have more and more been in this spot where I'm like, you know what? I'm not changing anything. I'm just gonna add one thing. And that for me, a few weeks ago, that was yoga. And then I was like, that comes with meditation. And then I decided I felt like pretty good where I'm gonna start doing a little bit of running. Nothing epic. I was just going to add these things like, because along with those changes usually come, I'm going to change my diet. I'm going to change this. I'm going to start doing this and this and this. And then it just becomes overwhelming. So I just decided to sit back and like start sitting with myself and try to treat myself with more respect and love and whatever. And just let the rest of it sort of take care of itself. And when you're changing, it comes back to the original topic was this internal motivation. You have to be comfortable in your own skin with where you're going. And you have to be able to go deeper and deeper into that place. And I find that once you do that, like the other things start falling off. Your bad habits or whatever they may be. I mean, I'm sure you notice that too. Is like if you just start doing little things, being consistent with it, all of a sudden the next thing, it's like, man, you know what? I think I'm going to start cleaning. I'm going to clean this, I'm going to start dusting or whatever. And you just start doing things naturally. And I think a lot of times that becomes a thing. So it's like pick something, stick with it, and let that kind of spark other, changes or
Well, it's
success
like,
stories.
yeah, no one's ever thought that the long way around was the special one, or extending things. That's I'm the special case. It always leads to a shortcut,
Yeah.
or cutting something in half. It's never like, yeah, you know what? I just won't fit the bill, so you know what? I got to stick with it longer. Whoa, whoa, whoa! Stop talking rational to me. It makes me feel uncomfortable. It's like,
Yeah.
but that's how so many people work, even with like, even in training and with racing, yeah, I don't have that many. I don't have that many hours, so you know what? You're right. I do need to extend. I do need to give myself more time to train in order to get it right. So I'll push the date back of this race a few months so I can do it right. Pardon? Wait,
Yeah.
whoa. Don't stop being smart. Yeah, I just can't. I just got to jam as many things as I can to this 1 hour, and I've got to crush 24/7. Then I'm gonna do this race in like a month because that's just what I got to do. No, it's what you choose to do, and it doesn't mean it's right.
Yep.
That's a good place to end it.
I think so. Um, I do have to say that you're a Narcos guy, right?
Oh yeah.
Did you know the season 3's out?
Did I know, or am I on set? Or am I on episode? Yes,
Episode what?
episode 4.
Uh,
Did you finish it?
I knew I was in trouble. I saw it last night about 7:30, and I was
Oh,
like,
so you finished it.
I didn't finish. No, no. I showed some pretty good restraint on that. I only got through
Oh,
episode like 4 or 5.
good God.
But I gotta say, I don't think it's as good as the other ones, but it's not bad.
Yeah, I'm not feeling it yet, but sometimes that means it could come around. So we'll see.
You'll be happy to see some of the characters.
Don't spoiler alert for people out there, man.
Well, I just said you'll be happy to see some characters in the that start emerging.
Okay, good, good. I'm excited about that
Because I
then.
haven't been crazy about the acting from some of these
Yeah,
guys. It's
I'm
almost like
just keep
it's like
waiting.
you and me trying to portray,
Oh,
ourselves as
God.
DEA agents. Well, that's just not how the ball works. Or
Yeah,
what's the saying? That's not how the ball drops here, young
yeah,
man. They're just like it's like a cliche central, but it's good.
yep,
I'm not gonna tear it down too hard.
again, yeah, again.
Come on, man. It's a little Narcos.
Yeah, we'll see. Just in time for me to like get with it and love it, it'll be over.
I know.
Yeah.
But I mean, there's a lesson there. One. Can you do one episode at a time? That's what you do, right?
Oh no, not if I'm on the trainer. I just keep going. I have to do one show at a time. I can't go back and forth on shows. If I'm in it, like I finished Making a Murder Part Two, and even though Narcos came out, I can't go back and forth between.
Oh, okay.
I have to just stick with it. I have to go. I have to stick with the one.
Mm-hmm. Not doing too many races at once there.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's the thing I got to start doing. Just do on the trainer. I don't know why I don't do that, but it's sort of end of night. Am I going to get on the bike now and watch five
Hmm.
episodes of a
Be,
5-hour trainer ride?
be a nice endurance ride, man.
uh, I don't know. I'm torn. I think recovery and rest is good too right now.
It is, man. It is.
So, anything else on your mind, buddy?
No, man, that's it.
Look, I ordered a pizza the other on Pizza Friday.
It was Pizza Friday?
Yeah, Pizza Friday. I I, I had a big yoga day on Saturday, so I needed a fuel. But I ordered a pizza. I said, yeah, pepperoni, mushroom, this and that. Okay, what's the name on the order? I said, Mike, and she said, excuse me, did you say bike?
Ooh, like speaking my language.
I said, I
I
said,
feel
yeah,
fireworks.
I said, yeah, my name is Bike. I'll be there in 15 minutes. Okay, Bike.
On two wheels.
So, anyway,
I usually get Rodney.
Rodney's your name?
Yeah, it's not
Oh,
Robbie.
Rodney.
You say Rodney? Yeah,
Rodney.
sure, whatever. Rodney. Rodney Bruce.
Rodney and
Sounds good.
Bike.
Yep, Rodney and Bike. Coming to another podcast episode to you. Yeah, we'll be back on Thursday. If you have any more questions about anything or comments, you can always email Mike, crushingiron@gmail.com. You can reach me directly as well, c26coach@gmail.com. Head over to our website, crushingiron.com, and you'll get more information on our training camps, triathlon camps, what we have this coming year, our blog, swim analysis, and the club tab, far right. Click on that. Again, that goes up. The price goes up on January 1st to $3.99. It's a great deal. We're getting close to 40, which is awesome. 50 would be great. And if you have more questions or you want information on coaching and training packages with me, you can always click on that tab as well and get all the answers you need.
Yep. And I'm sure nobody's listening anymore, but if you are, I want to just throw out a little challenge to our closed Facebook group, if I may.
Ooh.
I think we have a lot of good stuff going on in there. There's a lot of awesome people and insightful, wise, experienced triathletes. I'd like to start seeing if we can get, back to your lurker thing. There's a lot of lurkers in there, I'm sure. And I'd really love it when people step up and kind of like post things about where they came from and things they've kind of gotten through and their challenges and, the inspiring little stories that I'm sure a lot of other people can identify with. And we can have, I just think those kind of dialogues are so exciting to have. It's like when people kind of like say, hey, I came through this and this is where I'm at now and this is how I got there, and maybe the inspiration that can be gained from others. And it's really about everyone in the group. This is our podcast, but it's the community in the closed Facebook group, which you can find as searching Crushing Iron Group on Facebook. I'd just like to see that thing heat up a little bit.
Let's see it, and it's not off season for our group, that's for sure.
No, you know what I'm saying though. There's
I hear you, man.
Let's not let it leak into that other stuff.
Let it leak into that other stuff.
Well,
Seriously.
there's other types of groups. I just want to get a little more substance going, and I know we have it in us. Don't be shy, and our community is built around support and kind of thoughtful response and things like that. So,
no such thing as a dumb question or a dumb comment.
Right? Yeah, that kind of stuff.
I mean, well, that's not true. There is. But
what I'm just
for
saying
the
is,
most part, there's not.
Look, we all do this. We all kind of run a run and we're like, oh, I just thought of a good question to ask something. Just go deep and speak from the heart.
Yeah, I hear you, man.
I want some honesty and vulnerability and stuff like that to start coming out, because this is I think it's a good place for it. That's why I say that. I think that we've got a really nice group of people for the most part, and it's sort of self-polices itself and things like that. It's a good place to, talk about the things you're struggling with or how you got to where you're at, whatever.
Preach.
That's what I'm calling for.
Preach.
Yeah. So if you're lurking, get in there. Let us know who you are.
Yep. And we hope you've enjoyed this other extended edition of the Crushing Iron Triathlon podcast.
Yep. See, we're just building endurance. By the end of the year,
That's
we're
right,
going to be
man.
2-hour podcasts. You guys are going to be like, whoa.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have enough time for these casts.
All right. They're taking shortcuts, which is they probably.
Once we get to 2 hours, then I'll be doing the short Cliff Note versions.
Let's not do that.
All right, let's not do that.
All right.
All right.
Have a good day, people.
Thanks for joining us. Crushing Iron Podcast 223 is in the books. Have a good day.
You too, man.